Hi, my name is Kevin and I collect old irons. Let me start this, our 41st video, with a few words that I commonly wait to the last moments to say if I bother to say at all. And that is that if you are watching these videos and learning something from them, then do subscribe, do send a thumbs up, do send out a share to others, because YouTube watches that. They have an algorithm that keeps track of the number of views, how long people are viewing these, how many comments, how many thumbs up, how many shares, and they use that in deciding whether these videos should be shared with potential new viewers. And that's what we're here for, is to get out the word to other people that might be interested in this subject. So, if you would, perhaps right now, push the pause button, and if you have not already, subscribe, send a comment, and do share with others, please. In this video, we will cover a range of relatively small wooden devices used to press fabric. By and large, we don't use the word iron in these. They are not used in the same way necessarily that we speak of in ironing, and are not made of iron. But these do press fabric. They are collected by iron collectors, and they're very interesting to iron history. One word that is often applied to these devices is mangle. The mangles were oftentimes quite large, used in commercial laundries or in the great or smaller estates. We know that in colonial America, both George Washington and Benjamin Franklin both had a large box mangle, something similar to that shown in this 1794 illustration. The fictional Downton Abbey must surely have had a mangle, and a staff of several people who pressed and prepared the clothing, which was applied to all the various layers of clothing in a gown, to the cloth napkins on a table. Some of these mangles were the size of cars, even buses. Others were substantial pieces of furniture, similar to an early printing press, getting down to the smaller devices that pressed the cloth napkins or socks. In the late 18 to early 1900s, these took the form of very elaborate ringers, made largely of cast iron. I know iron collectors that may have one of these, in the basement usually. These are very hard and heavy. Steam and electric mangles are still seen today in industries, laundries, and domestic use. But what we are primarily talking about here are relatively simple wooden devices used domestically. These are the Mangle Boards. The Mangle Boards primarily come from Europe, particularly Northern Europe, the countries around the Baltic Sea, although some immigrants did come to the United States to make Mangle Boards here. Surely these go back to the Vikings, but the very early examples were simple boards and were not preserved from one generation to the next. But in about the 1500s, these things began to become increasingly ornamented. They were frequently used for wedding gifts, and they have become notable items of folk art. They are widely collected, and various of the early and more ornamented examples can go for thousands of dollars. I have two Mangle Boards in my collection. This is the most important to me. It is the oldest iron in my collection. It is dated 1693. It consists of a board. It's 72 centimeters long, 14 centimeters wide, with a handle. The board is on beechwood, probably Swedish. There are some ornamentations on the handle. There's some notching around the edges. Otherwise, it's not particularly decorated and has never been painted. It has also the original roller. The rollers and the boards are not often found together. And the way that these would have been used was that one would dampen the cloth and then wrap it around the roller and then roll that with the board, probably putting some weight on it on both sides to flatten out that fabric, and then you could do more detailed work perhaps with other irons. Now, this particular iron, or I should say Mangle Board, has a very personal story. I I got this in Indiana while visiting my grandmother in the 1980s in the company with my then girlfriend, Kate. It was in an antique shop. It was $200. I was a graduate student. I had nothing like $200, but I mentioned it to my mom, and she sought this out and bought it for us as a wedding gift. Now, one of the things about the Mangle boards is these were very frequently used as wedding or betrothal gifts, and it could very well be that this board has been used as a wedding gift twice at two separate weddings separated by almost 300 years. My other Mangle board is probably Danish, made of oak, and it has a horse head handle, these horse head handles being pretty common. For ornamentations, there are 3 roundels, these circular designs. There are some initials and an 1856 date. Both of these boards are relatively simple and have a value in the $100 realm. But Mangle boards can be highly ornamented. J. Raymond, who I have mentioned previously, has documented some 1,500 Mangle boards in a magnificent book, Mangle Boards of Northern Europe, of coffee table size. This book is highly recommended for anyone who wishes to learn more about these. And I can also recommend a video that shows Jay and some of the Mangle boards that he has described, and we will have links to these in the description. Many of the major auctions of irons are still viewable online, even years after the auctions occurred. We can also see things that are beyond our collecting limits or budget. I must apologize that the Brookwell photos in magnification are somewhat pixelated. The Carson photos come straight from Hartzell's auctioneers and are of higher resolution. We will see some fine European boards and other wood devices from the 15 to 1800s. And if you look at the auctions online, there are plenty more. Let us start with lot 608 from the Brookwell auction. This is from Friesland, a Germanic culture now largely in a province of North Holland. Dated 1728, this consists of a flat board made of oak, 12 centimeters wide, 92 centimeters long. There is a cluster of 6 roundels on the end and 6 carved roundels along the length. This is typical of Friesland boards and has no handle. Sold for $1,772. Again, the price includes auction costs. Our second Mangle board, lot 741 of the Brookwell auction, is Danish, dated 1772, carved and painted on beech. 19 centimeters wide, 72 centimeters long, so a bit wider and shorter than the previous board. The board depicts Adam and Eve. The paint is fairly bright and suggests, to me at least, that the paint has been substantially restored. The Mangle board has a horse-shaped handle and includes the roller. This sold for just short of $5,000. Lot 750. This is another Danish board, dated 1812, carved and painted on beech. 15.5 centimeters wide, 67 centimeters long, with many smaller and 2 larger roundels. Such roundels are very typical of Mangle boards. We saw these earlier in my 1856 Swedish board. The handle is a 2-headed horse. Such 2-headed horses are fairly common, but any meaning that should be given to these is uncertain. This included a roller and sold for just less than $800. This is lot 969 of the Brookwell auction. This is Icelandic, dated 1773, relatively narrow and small, 6 centimeters wide and 63 centimeters long on carved driftwood. The longer middle piece is decorated in Celtic-like knots. There is a scroll and a stylized hand on one end and the head of a snake on the other. This is exceptionally pretty, and Icelandic boards are fairly rare. This sold for $11,400. Lot 956, a Norwegian board, dated 1805, carved and painted on birchwood. The top of the board is arched and depicts stylized flowers. The handle is a lion, clutching the pearl of wisdom between the front paws. This sold for $1,330. Lot 974, another Norwegian board. This is undated, but is probably from about 1810 to 1820. 10 centimeters wide, 74 centimeters long, carved and painted birch wood with an oak roller. The board depicts 3 flowered roundels between 2 hearts. The horse handle includes a bob tail and a scale carved mane, sold for $1,240. Now before we move on, let's just have a little caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. These boards were made long time ago, before mass production, by individuals who are often highly skilled craftsmen. Such craftsmen exist today as well. But with the now high prices that these bring, some craftsmen may turn their hand to making new boards or modifying old boards for profit. Jay's observation is that many of the Mangle boards in the European museums, there for a long time and with provenance, are oftentimes in not as good a condition as the boards that are on the current market. This suggests that at least some of the boards that are currently for sale are not what they're originally sold as being. This is also true of some of the early European slug irons, some of the brassy Belgian irons. It's true of old furniture and antiques in general. One has to develop an eye for age and authenticity. There is a variety of other wood devices that can include laundry paddles, oftentimes called washbats or laundry sticks. And various of these can be intricately carved, and while these are not pressing devices per se, they're collected by iron collectors, and particularly those that also collect Mangle boards. I will show here some photos from the upcoming Buck Carson auction held by Hartzell Auctioneers this coming July 28th in Pittsburgh. And the auction catalog has a lot of very interesting pieces, and I thank John Hartzell for these photos. This is lot 102 from what will be the first of several auctions from the Buck Carson collection. This is a 19th century German washing bat with date 1848. Size is about 41 centimeters long, almost half of that being the handle, and 18 centimeters wide, so 16 by 7 inches. The design is 2 kissing swans with their necks framing a heart shape. Quite romantic, and I will presume that this is a wedding or betrothal gift. In this view of the back, note the small woodworm borings. This is quite common of the old European wood artifacts. The catalog for this auction gives a value of $2,000 to $5,000. Lot 212 from the upcoming Carson auction. Here is a Scandinavian washbat dated 1834 with the initials KN and DK, presumably initials prior to the wedding. Length is 42 centimeters, 17 inches, with 2/3 of that being the paddle. This has geometric designs similar to some of the Mangle boards that we saw earlier. Note again the woodworm borings in the back. Value here given as $500 to $1,000. This is lot 202. This is an American washing stick, basically a fork design. About 69 centimeters, 27 inches long. The business end is about the same size as the first washing bat we saw earlier, with the handle being longer. The end of the handle includes a cutout heart design, again a very common motif in these. There is a screw repair in one of the tines. This might go for $100 or $200, but this is something you might be looking for in American barn sales. And the last of these small old wooden items is lot 304 of the Carson auction, a wood crimper. A crimper is basically a fluting iron, but with finer grooves. These wooden crimpers are usually from Denmark or the Netherlands. I think this is Danish, and is marked LLD 1829 and LLD 1833, which I am guessing is the birth years of the 2 people about to be married. Note again the heart design cut into the handle. And there are other wood pressing devices. You might remember from our hat video, we talked about many of the Tollikers and other hatter irons being made of wood. These are oftentimes wood blocks, can be other designs as well, and the wood elements are very highly sought after by the hatter community. Iron collectors are generally more interested in hat irons that are made of iron. But I have one here that is a hat iron made of wood, but very obviously in the shape of an iron. It has a rounded side, and I think what this is for is, let me change my hats here, for ironing around the crown of the hat. This particular hatter iron I found at an iron auction some years ago for about $50. And the last piece to talk about here is something that I bought in a small collection of stuff I recently purchased in southern Maine. The larger collection included some English items, and I think that this might be English. It has the general look of a European slug iron. You can see the little door here, although this is all made of wood. Actually, it's carved from a tree. This is the trunk of the tree, and this is a branch. You can see the wood grain in this. It has on the one side here the letters TAE, presumably the initials of the person that made this or the initials of the person that this was made for. The A is larger than the other two, so that might be the last name. On the other side there's a forward shaped arrow, and on the front there is a crucifix. This is made of wood. I think this is actually made to be an iron. The bottom is nicely flattened. It's a little rounded on the top. I think this was made for use, probably made for or by a family that did not have much resources to be buying items made of iron. I wish I knew the story. I mean, who was this TAE? Where did they live? What was the time? These are questions that I'd like to have answered, but I will never have these answers. That is one of the joys and one of the frustrations of collecting old irons. As we've seen in these folk art Mangle boards and this folk art item as well, they oftentimes have initials, they have years, they're highly personalized, but the actual detailed history is something that we will never know. These rustic northern European communities in the 1500s to 1800s also made homemade pressing devices out of glass and out of stone, and I don't have these in my own collection. I hope we can do a video on these at a later time. These stone and glass devices themselves can go for hundreds of dollars. There is a tremendous amount of interesting history associated with these and very little knowledge, and I hope to be able to learn more about these later. Let me finish this video as I began it. We are trying to get the word out to other people that might be interested in these, and that comes by your subscriptions, your comments, your sharing with others, your up arrows. All of that is watched by these algorithms and helps in getting the word out. So please do that if you will, and thank you very much.